It's been 3 months.
90 days. And they haven't accounted for the more than 60 million that Daniel Volcaro transferred to the Bolsonaro family.
So, André, it was for the movie. Where's the accounting for the movie? Where are the financial records? Movies have accounting, guys. How much comes in? How much goes out? Who are the sponsors? Who gave money? Where did the money go? Money? Nothing.
90 days. And Flavio hasn't presented anything.
So he's running away. Not because Lula isn't going to participate. He'll only join the last one.
He's running away because he doesn't want to answer.
And he knows he's going to be crushed by the right-wing people who will be there. Not even the left, the right-wing people who will be there.
Put this up. Flavio the coward.
Already lost your nerve? It barely started and you already lost your nerve?
No, not at all. It's really hard. It's really hard. Look here.
Flávio, Bolsonaro decides to only go to a debate in the first round with Lula to avoid being targeted by his own right wing.
And Lula intends to attend only the meeting organized by Globo, the last one before the first round, which is on October 1st.
And the first round is on
October 4th.
Lula can, Flávio can't. And the Dick Vigaristas, who are there just to get attention and cause trouble, are eager, really excited. In fact, I heard behind the scenes that Pablo Marçal is in cahoots with Flávio. That he only joined in to be the sidekick and to try to defend Flávio. That's why he immediately said regarding Renan dos Santos that he's ready to fight with Renan dos Santos. Why? Because Renan dos Santos is attacking Flávio. So he got into the game as a kind of shield for Flávio. But should you say it or should I? There's no way to protect Flávio.
Why, Andrea? Because no one can cover his ass.
There's no shield big enough to cover Flávio Bolsonaro's big ass. Do you understand, my dear? So this is just to cause trouble. It's Father Kelmo and Dick Dastardly who are there exactly to create confusion. And what do I think? I think it's not enough. Will the Electoral Court allow it? Because Pablo Marçal, his candidacy has to be challenged. He is convicted. He is ineligible already twice, and I reiterate, by a multi-judge panel that, according to the Clean Record Law, makes him ineligible, unfit to be a candidate for any position whatsoever. And Nunes Marques and André Mendonça, are they going to accept him as a candidate? Based on an injunction? Until when? It's a shame. So realize that there's a strategy behind all of this. It's to cause turmoil. And Lula won't get in. Vai entrar in this mess. Lula won't be part of this whole filthy henhouse, this rotten roost. He won't. And he's absolutely right. And depending on how things go, on October 1st, Lula doesn't even have to take part in this one either. If Brazil's electoral justice system keeps going the way it is, depending on how Rede Globo handles it, there's no need to even go to this one. No, guys, you forgot about the chair incident. There was even a chair incident there in São Paulo, guys. It's a bunch of lies. It's a mess. Presenting the fake document during the debate. Then by the time they found out the document was fake, the doctor was fake, everything was fake, it had already been all over social media. The whole situation had already happened. And this one from October 1st. There's no time to debunk it. Pay attention to what I'm saying here. On October 1st, by the 4th, someone is already elected. And whatever remains will be discussed on social media and will stay there until election day. So you can fall into this people's trap. See? Especially with the electoral court involved in this process. Put this up. Out with Nunes, out with André Menosa. It's a disgrace. And Flávio, he failed. Lula really doesn't need to go. No, now Flávio has to go. And me, what do I think? I think it's not enough. They're so desperate, right, guys? So desperate because there's this wave trying to force Flávio on us. We are not going to accept Flávio. Flávio is unbearable. You get it? It's not possible. You chose the worst candidate you could have. And as I always tell you, the far right, Flávio Bolsonaro, is not the left's problem. Maybe it's the solution. Get the code. The far right today is a problem for the right, so much so that the right is tearing into Flávio. Yeah, Ronaldo Caiado, Romeu Zema, Alain Santos, Santos from MBL, Pablo Marçal, he's there too. They are trying to attack only Lula and shield Flávio Rachadinha, as if we were idiots. Baby, oh. Ooh. Pablo Marçal even lost his temper yesterday. He went to take part in a podcast, right? And the guy told him, your candidacy is fake. Your candidacy is a farce. You're convicted. That makes you ineligible. Or aren't you? And Pablo Marçal didn't answer. And he got mad. He started talking tough. Go on. There's no point in talking tough. There's no point in all that bluster. He's ineligible. And if it's accepted, really, if his candidacy is approved, it's a coup. It's Brazil's superior electoral court trying to disrupt the process. You get it? But he's going to lose his way home. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I want to watch the debate. I want to see things getting heated over there. People see who these people really are. Take a look at Pablo Marçal. Pablo Marçal didn't even respond. Pablo Marçal is already trying to mess up the process. And he got nervous. He came out here, the magazine. Look here, I'll show it to you. I don't have X. If I click here to make it bigger, then the thing crashes because I don't have X. No, I can't deal with X. I don't have the patience for it. Look here.
You're convicted. You're convicted to the point that your supposed candidacy will be barred from running. Your candidacy will be challenged. It will be challenged. What I want to know is this. Are you receiving money from someone, from some party to disrupt the election?
I'm not talking. I'm not getting paid. Unlike someone who apparently is getting paid to talk. I'm on my own. Say your name. Who are you with? Because I don't even know who you are.
My name is Regis Tadeu.
I don't know you either. And it's not a pleasure to meet you right now because from your tone, I can tell that you're holding something in to ask.
No, I'm not holding anything in. I'm asking a question. Do you want to answer or not?
I've already answered.
Yeah, from your answer, it's pretty clear. What's your intention here?
Man, not a kid, man.
Yeah, you
dá pra perceber bem. Not to me, TV.
Isso, dá pra perceber bem. Dá pra perceber bem qual é a sua intenção.
What's the next question?
Já acabou, Regis? Terminou?
Ah, ele não respondeu.
Did it arrive there? Are you going to set up the panel to... You're already starting off wrong, right? Jurors, do you understand anything? Then ask questions to someone who understands.
Good Lord, that's it. Take it, put it there. The cabaret is on fire because it looks like a cabaret. Really? Pablo Marçal had a conviction. There are several convictions, Pablo Marçal. Pay attention to what I'm going to explain to you. There are several convictions against Pablo Marçal for ineligibility. Several. There was one conviction of his that was overturned, that was dismissed. But there were other convictions of his that remained. And he was convicted by the Regional Electoral Court. Regional Electoral Court of São Paulo for the shenanigans he pulled in the 2024 election. With the presentation of a fake document, a terrible situation, with abuse of economic power, with abuse of advertising power, a series of situations. And since he was convicted by a panel of judges, which is the Regional Electoral Court, the Clean Record Law says that anyone convicted by a collegiate body is disqualified from running. Is there an appeal, André? There is still an appeal to the Superior Electoral Court.
I'm not sure about that. And you can file an appeal with the Superior Electoral Court.
If the Superior Electoral Court convicts, there is an appeal to the Supreme Court, but then it already has to be enforced. But anyway, Pablo Marçal is already considered ineligible, according to the clean record law. So how is he going to be a candidate? He filed his candidacy registration, and then an administrative process is open where the Electoral Court will decide whether to approve or not his candidacy, just like all the others. In the case of Gilvanda Federal, Nunes Marques issued a preliminary decision saying that he can be a candidate. But André, in the case of Pablo Marçal, can Nunes Marques also issue a preliminary injunction saying that he can be a candidate? Yes, he can. Not just him, right? In fact, André Mendonça can too. And I wouldn't doubt it. Pay attention to what I'm telling you all. I wouldn't be surprised if André Mendonça or Nunes Marques issues an injunction allowing Pablo Marçal to run as a candidate. Why? It's to disrupt the process. And I ask you, is Lula going to take part in this mess? He won't. He won't, and he shouldn't. He should keep his distance from that level of mess down there. Lula shouldn't go down where those people are. Lula has to stay where he is, working, doing his job, and so on. And if he really thinks it's appropriate and timely to take part in the last debate, which is on October 1st, even then, it has to be very carefully considered. Because Flávio, the weak and cowardly one, has already run away. Pablo Marçal is there just to stir things up. Além dos Santos is the same way, and the others are just there to see if they can get any leftovers, any scraps, just to get some attention. And Lula shouldn't take part in this, no. And let's see what the Electoral Court is going to do. Will they accept it? Someone with a tainted record running for office? Yeah, what times are these, huh? Meanwhile, Lula's victory, end of the 6 days on, 1 day off schedule, moves forward after Alcolumbre's signature. The President of the Senate signed the order that sends the proposal to the Constitution and Justice Committee. The agenda is treated as a priority by the federal government. At this rate, Lula might manage to approve the end of the 6 days on, 1 day off schedule before the elections. Lula sought out Davi Alcolumbre. Look, I told you all, he sought him out. Davi Alcolumbre practically already did election campaigning for Lula yesterday. At an event saying that Lula defends sovereignty, defends against attacks from outside. I showed it to you all here yesterday. At an event there in Amapá, where they discovered more oil, they found very high quality oil there in Amapá. Now they have to find out how big this oil well is to see if it's worth it. But the quality is very good. Then Lula, together with the people from Petrobras, held an event there in Amapá, where Davi Alcolumbre has already spoken. Lula is the one who defends Brazil, who defends our sovereignty, and so on and so forth. And that we're the ones who have to decide things here in Brazil. So Lula went after it and should achieve progress for the good of the Brazilian people, for the workers, because that's what he aimed for. The public interest, serving the public interest, the approval of the end of the 6 days on, 1 day off schedule. For every 5 days you work, you will be entitled to 2 days off without a reduction in salary. This will be very important. Actually, Flávio even made a video saying he's against it, saying whatever. That same old story, right? From the scammers. Oh, it's going to ruin Brazil. It won't. It won't. That's just talk to fool people. Most of the categories actually have already left this 6 days on, 1 day off schedule because it's not productive. Now, there are a number of workers who unfortunately still have to submit to this kind of schedule. And it's exactly for these workers that Lula is working, to try to get it approved even before the elections. Then Davi Alcolumbre got it moving and already sent it to the CCJ, to the Constitution and Justice Committee. It should pass there in the CCJ. An opinion should be issued, a vote approved, okay? Then, since it's a PEC, a proposed amendment to the Constitution, it has to be approved twice in the federal Senate
by a qualified quorum of 3/5 for its approval, right?
It must also go through a special committee.
But this can be quick. All of this can be approved in 48 hours. Can it, Andre? Yes, it can.
All of this can be approved in 48 hours.
It can even be approved twice in the Federal Senate plenary. And Davi Alcolumbre, if he wants, he can make this happen.
Together with Lula.
Let's see what happens. But that's not all.
I want you to put, before I talk about another important situation, I want you to put there end of the 6 days on, 1 day off schedule. Put it there. Don't let me talk to myself. Don't let me talk to myself.
Help me, for God's sake. Put it there. End of the 6 days on, 1 day off schedule now.
And it's going to be thanks to Lula, see?
Davi Alcolumbre,
one eye open, the other closed. Look, look. Those who know you know what they're getting. We know very well, right?
But it's all right. It's all right. Come on. Lose the election. You need support.
Come on. Let's all take it easy to see if Lula can win in the first round, right? But look, it's one eye open, one eye closed.
Look, don't close both at once, okay? Otherwise, there will be trouble.
So that's the situation. End of the 6 days on, 1 day off schedule. But that's not all. I don't know if you remember that Lula introduced a provisional measure that will expire now on September 8th. A provisional measure is an instrument that, if Lula presents it and it is published, becomes effective immediately. It's as if it were a law. It becomes effective immediately. But the provisional measure has to be reviewed by the National Congress and turned into law within 60 days, extendable for another 60. If within that time frame, the provisional measure, which has the immediate effect of law, which the president issues, is not turned into law, it expires and is dropped. Lula presented a provisional measure to end the cheap clothing import tax. Do you remember that cheap clothing import tax? That's right. Lula presented a provisional measure to repeal the cheap clothing import tax, which, by the way, was created with the support of the Bolsonaro supporters, even that old man from Havana. What's his name again? What's his name?
Luciano Heng. Luciano Heng, he went to the National Congress to lobby for it to be approved. Then the people went ahead and approved the cheap clothing import tax. Period. That's it. So what did Lula do? He went and presented the provisional measure to repeal the cheap clothing import tax. And this provisional measure repealed the cheap clothing import tax. But it's only valid for 60 days, and it can be extended for another 60. If it isn't turned into law, it expires, and it's going to expire on September 8th. Now, if it isn't turned into law, what Lula did was seek out Davi Alcolumbre too. He talked to Davi Alcolumbre, who is the president of the National Congress and is responsible for this. Davi Alcolumbre, I need the provisional measure to be turned into law. If not, it will expire. And if it expires, the cheap clothing import tax will hit the public again.
So another thing that Lula also worked on is this, so that his provisional measure gets turned into law and stays in force afterward.
Did you get it? Let's take a quick look here.
After getting closer to Alcolumbre again, Lula is betting on the end of the tax on cheap imports.
After months of being practically stalled in Congress, Provisional Measure 1357/2026, issued by Lula to eliminate the import tax on international purchases up to $50, made within the Remessa Conforme program. Finally, it got moving. The joint committee responsible for the analysis was established on August 12 and has a new meeting scheduled for September 1. The text needs to be approved. That is, Lula's provisional measure must be converted into law by Congress by September 8. So it doesn't lose its validity. So this is also very important within Lula's strategy, okay? Together with Davi Alcolumbre, who is the president of the Senate and at the same time the president of the National Congress as well, okay? We know it's not for free. Unfortunately, the support isn't free. According to insider reports, Davi Alcolumbre asked for Lula support for his re-election next year. because next year there will be a re-election and an election for the new president of the Federal Senate. And Davi Alcolumbre can try for re-election. So by all indications, Lula made a deal to support him in this re-election. So that now we can unblock what needs to be unblocked to serve the public interest. Look at where we end up, right? But that's the situation. The same thing with Hugo Mota. Hugo Mota has already declared support for Lula. He says Lula has to be re-elected, that Lula is the best candidate. He's the best for Brazil. Why? Because very likely he also made this back and forth deal of supporting Lula in exchange for Lula supporting his own re-election, emphasizing that this re-election happens within the chamber itself by the lawmakers' votes. To choose the new president of the Chamber of Deputies, whose current president is Hugo Mota, who is already supporting Lula, and the new president of the National Congress and the Federal Senate, Davi Alcolumbre, who is also already expressing support for Lula, emphasizing that Hugo Mota still has to be re-elected. He will have to participate in the election to be re-elected, right? Federal deputy. Davi Alcolumbre is more relaxed. Davi Alcolumbre doesn't need to participate in the election now. That's because a senator's term is 8 years. And he has completed 4, so he has 4 more years. He won't participate in the election now. So he's even more at ease, right? He's sitting pretty and isn't worried about serving the public interest right now because he doesn't need anyone's vote. He still has 4 more years of his term guaranteed. Then sometimes you ask me, Andre, but why does a senator have an 8-year term? Because it's in the Constitution. It was determined that it would be better for the senator to have an 8-year term so that he could do more effective things for his states, whom he represents. It's there in the Constitution. That's why it's 8 years. Okay, so he's more relaxed. He's kind of, as my grandmother used to say, doesn't give a damn about the voters. He wants to work the back channels there to be re-elected as president of the Senate. Do you understand, my dear? That's the situation. Meanwhile, have you liked the live stream yet? No, I can't believe it. I can't believe it, Charlene. Hey, Gerard. Hey, Gerard, like the live stream, for God's sake. Jesus, help me, or I'm going to end up talking to myself here too. You just stay there, not even saying hi to me. Man, in the 6-on-1 schedule, Gal Colombo, outside, kill. Of course, Flávio Bolsonaro, chicken out. Put something on, please. Look here, okay? Dino and Moraes support bringing back the journalism degree requirement and reopen the debate in the Supreme Court. The ministers say that the transformation caused by social media requires a new discussion about education and regulation of the profession. The debate takes place after a case involving a blogger in Maranhão and a discussion about source confidentiality. Yesterday, there was a big debate there. They said that because, here's the thing, to work as a journalist, you don't need to have a college degree in journalism. This has even already been decided by the Supreme Court. No, André, no. To work as a journalist, you don't need to have a college degree in journalism. It's a decision by the Supreme Court, okay? Now, Flávio Dino and Alexandre de Moraes are saying that this needs to be reconsidered by the Supreme Court and that a journalism degree should be required. Why? Because he says that there are many bloggers who aren't journalists and who have the right to protect their sources. And that this is wrong because there are a lot of bloggers, for example, who could even be hired by the PCC, by Comando Vermelho, and so on. But it doesn't really make sense because we're seeing that there are journalists who are being bought by organized crime, even with a degree in hand. So the problem itself isn't the blogger or the journalist. The real problem is the crooks within the profession, whether they're bloggers or journalists. Because, I'll say it again, there are journalists out there who work for organized crime. We know that. And we know that in any profession, there are good people and bad people, right? So maybe that's not the solution. But it's a topic for debate, and this debate can be brought up. That's what Minister Flávio Dino and Minister Alexandre de Moraes requested, for this debate to come back to the Supreme Federal Court. Maybe to review that decision that says journalists don't need a degree to be journalists.
All of this is part of that whole mess involving Pablo, who is a journalist, who has a blog, and published saying that Flávio Dino was committing the crime of corruption by using his position, official car, and so on. Actually, behind him, there was a source, which was Raimundo Coutrin, a former federal police officer who is even suspected of homicide, and who actually wanted to target Minister Flávio Dino, who was being persecuted and threatened along with his family. It's all part of this mess. It's all part of this mess, this situation. Shall we check out the highlights of the speech? And you can already share what you think about this situation, okay? Let's see here. Let's see if I have it, because I don't even know if I do. Shall we watch a quick Flávio Dino clip here? Flávio warns that the automatic extension of press protection to bloggers is a challenge for the judiciary. Pay attention here.
There is ultimately, Minister Alexandri, a tension that has made all of this even more difficult. Because there is a Supreme Court decision, which I respect, obviously, and who knows, one day it might be debated again, regarding the waiver of the journalism degree requirement for practicing the profession. So that makes things more complicated. To the extent that the automatic extension of this system of guarantees to any blogger could lead the PCC and Comando Vermelho to start recruiting bloggers. There would be 100 bloggers, supposedly, to be protected by this set of guarantees that in 88 referred to professional journalism. So what was already problematic in itself and centuries old has become even more complex because the diploma is no longer necessary, which constitutes an additional challenge to the interpretative role that belongs to the judiciary and only to the judiciary to independently determine the meaning of the Constitution. I would like to draw your attention.
Finally, it's a situation that needs to be debated again, right? Because social media has brought a new dynamic. And the debate is always constructive. But I'll repeat, journalists can also be co-opted by the PCC and by the Comando Vermelho. It's not just bloggers, no, journalists too. So the problem itself, I'll repeat, is not the lack of a diploma, is the lack of character, in my view. Now, if you have a diploma, even better, obviously. Many of you, for example, call me a journalist. I'm not a journalist by training. My field is law. I have a bachelor's degree in law, licensed by the Brazilian Bar Association, a postgraduate degree in public law, and a postgraduate degree in political science. And since I have communication skills, which is a gift God gave me, I use these communication skills, this gift God gave me. And I work with information based on my technical and legal knowledge, always explaining to you how it works. Now, I could be a scammer. And what would that be? Lack of character, not lack of a diploma. Do you understand, my dear? Now, debate is always important and constructive. All right? The situation here is interesting. Camelusa mentioned a little bit about the issue of immunity, of freedom, which I think fits within the context of the analysis we're doing here. Obviously, I need your opinion too. Your opinion is the most important one here. So leave your opinion here about this topic as well. Pay attention.
Democracy is a system of legality, responsibility, and it is based on human care, respect, and deference. And therefore, a certain limit should not be crossed, which is not using certain terms, swear words, things that are not only offensive to the person being targeted, Mr. President. It seems to me that it's offensive to those who voted for the person and who maybe, like in my house, would never say a swear word because it was considered something abominable. So the vileness of behaviors that, as Your Excellency rightly says, whether in public or private spaces, does not allow this kind of conduct. And those who thought of the pillars to build contemporary constitutionalism never imagined this would happen. That someone would take advantage of this space for this kind of behavior. That's why I think of Ortega y Gasset, I and my circumstance. Constitutional law must reckon with adapting democratic institutions while maintaining democracy and the principles, the values that made us a society. In the face of these circumstances that are no longer occasional, right, President? Democracy is, that's right.
No one would imagine that a federal deputy would be someone like Juvanda Federal. Cursing, talking about all sorts of things like that, with no manners at all. And is still committing crimes using his own position as a federal deputy. So there has to be constant adaptation from the legal team to deal with these imaginable situations or ones that used to be rare but now seem to have become the rule. Right, Nicholas? Situations involving lies, fake news, and bluster, all just to make a short little video that goes viral on social media. And that sticks in the minds of weak-minded people who end up believing in this terrible situation. And it's interesting how things change, isn't it? In the past, the pastor wanted his children to become church workers and pastors. Not anymore. Today, what he wants is for them to become politicians. Look here, everyone. My father, Ariari Soares, pastor. He surpasses Bolsonaro and has 5 children running for office. While the Bolsonaros are missing Eduardo Bolsonaro, who is self-exiled in the United States and ineligible, it's from the family of Pastor Ariari Soares, founder and leader of the International Church of God's Grace, leading the ranking of brothers running as candidates in the 2026 elections. The 5 children of Pastor R.R. Soares are candidates in this election. In the past, the pastor wanted his children to be what? Pastor, bishop, church worker, missionary. Not anymore. Now they're going to become politicians. And we take advantage of it and use our church's political capital to elect politicians, the 5 children of R.R. Soares. Do you see how things change, guys? Things change in a very strange way. Oh my God, surpassed Bolsonaro. Because Bolsonaro, had Flávio Bolsonaro, Eduardo Bolsonaro, Carlos Bolsonaro, Renan Bolsonaro, and now is going to be Micheka. All 5 would be candidates and all would be elected. Now, Flávio Bolsonaro is a senator until December 31st of this year. After that, he won't be anything anymore. He'll be out. Eduardo Bolsonaro is already out. He's there ineligible. And soon, Eduardo Bolsonaro will be a fugitive from justice in the United States. Carlos Bolsonaro is running for Senate in Santa Catarina. It's a shame. He's not even from Santa Catarina. He already holds office. And Renan is there as a city councilor in Balneário Camboriú. And what about Micheka now? Micheka is running for the Senate. R.R. Soares, congratulations. It looks like you're going to surpass the Bolsonaro family. And Renan, now he's also running for federal deputy. To feed at the public trough at the federal level, right? The salary goes up, everything goes up. Oh, guys, for God's sake. So things really do change. And these times are strange and dark. And the saddest thing is that they're going to use the name of God and Jesus to deceive and manipulate people. In many situations, all for what? To get votes, to get into the structures of power and feed at the public trough and faith in Jesus. And it's just a tool for manipulating the masses. Talk of prayer and salvation. It's just nonsense, right? Unfortunately, what strange times. And that's why smash the like button, like, comment, and share. If you like it, stay. If you don't, go to hell. Kisses. Thank you.